And the reason why we're so keen to bring you all together and see if we can find a way to work collectively is to try to counter this very pervasive frame, as we would see it, that regulations, and for that matter taxes, are a burden. It's a common frame. It's a key kind of tenet of neoliberalism, and they're an affliction from which we need to be rescued. And as you'll all be aware, our opponents use very visceral language when they talk about why these things are a burden. They talk about us being choked and strangled. Health and safety has gone mad. There's red tape that literally ties us up. The tape is literally restricting us from doing things. It's a nanny state, and so on and so forth. And they are very disciplined, we would suggest, our opponents, and that kind of provides political cover for the cuts to agency budgets and enforcement, which we've already been discussing on the call. And we looked back when we were setting up Unchecked to the 1980s, and we looked at the sort of history of deregulation in the UK. And here are some of the key documents in terms of white papers or reports the government commissioned. And you can see a very familiar thing going on in the titles of these, or the opening text of these, just this relentless repeating of the idea that there are burdens. And I noticed the Prime Minister mentioned burdens quite a lot yesterday in his Peppa Pig speech to the CBI, for example. And this has been going on for a long time. Here's Harold Wilson when he was the president of the Board of Trade, promising a new bonfire of controls that the government was going to introduce. So, this has been embedded for a very long time and internalized, I think. So our kind of question to all of you is, are we in a moment of opportunity now? Can we do something collectively to try to challenge this? COVID showed the importance of strong rules in protecting the public. We've all just been through a real experience of that. And initially, as we know, revealed pretty strong public support, caught the government off guard, how much people were willing to do. We've just been hearing a little bit about some of these red wall new Conservative voters, and Phoebe's going to say more about them based on the research that we've been doing. And they're big on discipline and high standards and strong rules. But, and it's a big but, we think most of the time that support is only really latent, and it breaks through sporadically. We've just seen the backlash in sewage pollution, for example, but it's not a burning platform. Most of these voters are not getting out of bed in the morning worrying about these kinds of issues. So it feels to us like our kind of challenge is to try and activate that latent support. And just one comment on the red wall voters here is that, they definitely did want to take back control of making laws. They want laws to be British laws in the future, but they didn't expect that to lead to weaker protections and lower standards. In fact, the reverse. They assume that things will be better if laws are more British. And I just put one quote in here from some of the focus groups that we ran. Yeah, we were called Great Britain at one point, and I definitely feel we've kind of lost that. And why? Because we've left the EU. Should our expectations be lower? They shouldn't. So we think there's an interesting sort of dissonance, if you like, there, or tension that Jill's just been alluding to try to explore. So I'm not going to talk about this map in detail, but just to say that we are trying to put together an understanding of the battleground, the narrative battleground for regulation and deregulation. I could share this with you after the call. So we're trying to sort of start working on resources which could be collectively useful for all of us, and we would love your input on this, and I'll send it around with some more explanation. And I'm going to come back after we've heard from Nikki to this kind of three main clusters, as we would see them, of deregulation arguments. So a set of arguments that are essentially libertarian around freedom, nanny state, fun police, cotton wool kids, etc. A set of arguments around competitiveness, taking the brakes off the economy, productivity, innovation, growth, jobs, and so on. And a set of arguments that are more framed in terms of tradition and cultural questions, and this kind of idea that we should rely on British common sense. The metric martyrs, the market traders who went all through the court system insisting that they should be able to sell their vegetables to their customers in pounds and ounces rather than kilograms and grams, are an example, sort of totemic example of that third set of arguments. So I'm going to pivot to Nikki.